last word.
Yeah.
And Sheldon represents the newsroom today. I represent the editorial board. The decisions of the editorial board are made by Ron Davidson and myself. And Pete Ellis was unable to be here because of a prior appointment. So Sheldon is asking questions. She and Marsha Lane are covering the race.
Yes.
So, Sheldon, are you ready?
I am just about ready. I had an idea just in case. I'm going to record with my iPhone too.
Okay, all right, that's a good
I think
idea.
it's a good plan.
Okay,
Okay. Just a second.
I don't know that you have my, well, here. You want to do this?
Yeah, I could set it on a.
Stack of those.
Okay.
Oh,
Very
this
clever. Okay.
It's like the old days, make do with what you have. It's
That's
just
right.
a different thing to make do
Okay.
with.
Right, okay, Mr. McMahon, you're on.
All right. Well, as you know, my name is Gary McMahon. I'm running for St. Johns County School Board, District 5. I am a longtime resident of St. Johns County. I've been a local businessman ever since I've moved here. I have a partnership right now. It's First Coast Floors and More. It's a business, flooring, sales, and insulation. And why do I mention it? It's because it's 100% referral based. We do not have any advertising of any kind, with the exception of a couple local community telephone directories that we help support, you know, such as the Turtle Shores directory and stuff. But other than that, it's simply referral. And I mention that because it's to have a referral-based business, which I'm very proud of. You don't get that unless you're doing something right. You know, this St. Augustine for many years started off, you know, it was a small town and your name would make or break you. And it's still pretty much that way as far as a business is concerned. You know, even though we've grown substantially, you know, our business is still based on referral, people of your friends and neighbors telling each other. So quite proud of that. And I think it directly relates to what my performance would be in any elected position. You know, I pride myself, I get along with almost everybody. You know, it's a rare person I can't get along with. And it would be even rarer a person I couldn't work with. You know, so I hope to bring some harmony and a better relationship between the St. Johns County School Board and any other governmental agency that they had to interact with, such as our Board of County Commissioners in the city and the other entities that they have to deal with. As I said, I'm a longtime resident. Why I'm running for this position? I have a grandchild. And it's amazing how that changes you. You know, he's getting ready to start school here, and he will be attending the public schools in St. Johns County. And as we know, we have one of the best school systems in the state of Florida. And I want to participate in continuing the legacy of our system. You know, I want to protect it and to help do everything I possibly can to maintain and or improve the performance of our school system. And that includes the support of both the students, the parents, the teachers, you know, the whole system itself. I cannot stress enough the importance of the parents, that their participation, their involvement in our educational system. I think that's the #1 item that reflects the performance of our students, and I want to do everything in my possibility to increase the involvement of our parents in our children's education.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll start off, again, welcoming you. And as you know, with the schools today, there are a lot of issues, and they all come down to money.
Yes, ma'am.
Or at least most of them come
Yeah.
down to money, okay? And one of the issues out of Tallahassee is the new mandate for merit pay for performance, I guess, performance pay. So,
Yes.
what is your view on that, number one, and how are we going to fund it? Because no money came with that directive.
That's correct. It's another one of those unfunded mandates from Tallahassee
Yeah.
that we're so familiar with.
Yes.
The opinion on merit pay first. Many years ago, I used to work in the automotive association industry, automotive industry, and I was paid on a flat rate basis. And on a flat rate basis, you're paid by the work that's performed, not the amount of time it takes you. The caveat to that is if you do something real quick and it's not done correctly, you get to do it over for free. So it's not a one-way street there that you just do everything as quick as you can and everything's real good. It's quick as you can correctly. That's the whole secret of that, is correctly. And the merit pay is going to be very similar. The teachers that are recognized for their performance are going to be the ones that are going to be receiving it. And we truly expect quite a few of the St. Johns County teachers to qualify for this merit pay because of the performance of our school systems. We only had 2 schools that were rated average in this last go around, and so even they had an improvement, and so that deserves recognition. Funding it, we want to work closely with the board and the superintendent to see where those funds are going to come from, because it is another unfunded mandate. Unfortunately, there has not been any recent raises to our teachers' pays or pay system, and so this is going to place a real burden on the pay, and it's going to take some in-depth work with the teachers' representatives on how this is going to happen. The only bright side in this is our increase in community involvement. The businesses that have begun to support our teachers, our school programs, and I hope to have businesses that will actually sponsor the merit pay. This is, I think, the easiest thing to get the teachers or the businesses involved with, because they can directly see the results of it, exactly where their contributions be going. But at the same time, we're going to need a lot of businesses, with the performance of our system. I expect it to be quite a bit. It's going to take some close work with all parties. The teachers and the teachers' representatives have been very good so far, because of our current economy and the situation they've been in. And in light of the fact that they have, and we've got to do something to help at least keep them at the cost of living. So how are we going to do cost of living at least, and then merit pay also? The money's got to come from somewhere. Our current funding is the only thing. Now, as far as administrators, as board members, I want to highly or strongly work with our superintendent and our representatives that want to be in Tallahassee. We have some funds, like the PECO funds, the lottery funds, that are strictly going to charter schools right now. If we can loosen up the restrictions on those funds, then that would help support items such as merit pay. It's like our road taxes are strictly supposed to go to roads and road improvements. You can't spend them anywhere else.
Right.
PECO funds, which are our utility taxes that go to the school, they can only go to charter schools. Yeah. If anybody's been concerned and look at our budgets over the years, you realize that there's so many restricted funds, that can only be spent on certain items. And those are 2 examples of those funds that involve the school system. And I think that's one of the places where a political savvy person, somebody that has kept up and has been involved, would help, in the time that they'd be willing to spend in Tallahassee working with our representatives, to try to loosen up these areas.
Okay. Well, let's talk about charter schools. Do you think that charter schools should be given public funding to begin with?
Well, by definition, charter schools are public schools. They're just privately run public schools. So, by definition, yes, they're entitled to public school funds. I see a way, and our charter schools, several of them are filling a niche that would be extremely difficult for our public school system to fill. You know, some exceptional schools and stuff like that, and our handicapped school students, you know, the ones that need more attention. Our charter schools, some of them are specifically designed for those specific items. And so it's appropriate that they do receive public funds, since their charter, you know, is they are quote unquote a public school. You know, they're under the supervision of the public school system. They're reviewed by the public school system. And in essence, they are a branch of the public school system. It's just a privately run entity. And I think that St. Johns County has done a real good job with our charter school systems, of what's been, you know, brought online, and our community has done a great job, you know, and it's, I don't want to say a necessary evil, it's a necessary part of it. And it would come out of public funds for all these areas anyway. And at least with the charter schools, that's helped holding down the expense. You know, we have teachers retirement, teaching administrators and their retirements, their health care, and all these items that where if they're under a public company, they're working for, if they're working for a private company, then the private company is responsible for their health care, their retirement, you know, and items like that, instead of the county having that as an additional burden. So there's the advantage of working with a private company to run something like a public entity, which is charter schools are.
But, you know, the school district has a need to build a school a year. And they're not getting those funds. They didn't get those funds last year. Should those funds that go to charter schools to allow them to build schools, should that be 100% to charter schools? Or should the state provide more of a balance to ensure that public schools meet the need, because public schools have to take all students? What's your view on that funding?
As I pointed out earlier in the opening or so, we have the charter school funds, and our superintendent and our board members need to work closely with Tallahassee. And I strongly support loosening up the requirements on those. You know, it is public schools. You know, if the funds are there, we need to be able to draw on those funds fully. You know, and the amount of funds that you get locally, you know, your local taxes, your state taxes, you know, it helps you when you're looking for federal funds for matching funds. You know, so yes, I believe that's one of the areas where, as a board member, I look forward to working with our representatives to help open up that area, you know, open that more to public funding.
Okay, I have another question here. We also see this class size amendment still figuring into the schools, and of course there's no money to fund that either. How do you feel about the class size amendment?
I'd like to see that go back to the voters. St. Johns County has had a good record of the number of students that are per teachers, but at the same time, I hate to see it mandated. You know, every subject's not the same, every grade level's not the same, and our system is not broken down as they are. I don't want to imply that, you know, that you have to have the same number of teachers through all the grade levels. It's not that way anyway. But I think that's a decision for a local level, not for a state level. And so I'd like to see, you know, that go back on the ballots and have some freedom there. Obviously, the more involvement that we have by the volunteers, the teachers' aides, you know, the parents that get involved, the easier it would be to meet these requirements and give our students the best assistance possible. And so I think it's a multifaceted thing, like, you know, we mentioned earlier, getting people involved, you know, and there we go to our parent-teacher associations, going back to that, the bottom line, the parents. You know, unfortunately, in today's society, we have to have many households or in a two-family, they both had to have the two income to make things meet. But in areas where there's not, the more people that we can get involved to help assist our students, the better the system will be.
Okay, Sheldon?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I think you touched on the, how do we get more money to build more schools, and you talked a little bit about that. Do you have any other thoughts about funding for additional schools?
I'm gonna have to pass some minutes, when it was off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
That is one that we've been concerned with over the years. And it went from that, we were in a period of amazing growth, and we were able to, through the growth of the budget, we were able to keep up with things. And as we've seen with this recent downturn in our local economy, it's definitely slowed things down. But no, there has not been any designated funds. We're still having to take it out of our general funds. And we are presently taxed at practically the max of our millage for schools. Our ad valorem taxes that, our property taxes that the schools get their portion of. There's no way to increase that, so where does it come from? And once again, working with the businesses is the only place I can see that the possibility, there is a local businesses, for example, that is working vigorously, and the business itself is trying to raise funds, not just contribute funds, but raise funds. And if we could see more of that, it would help the system a lot. And it's the only way that's going to happen is school board members getting out there and vigorously working with more businesses to see what you can do. And an example, no, this was the one that's doing it right now is a large business. And we understand that. And as a small business owner, I can relate to us if a small business was approached. I myself cannot do that as a small business owner. But being part of a group, I may be able to. So it would take the effort of someone, in this case, i.e. a board member, to sit down and say, okay, if you could be part of a group, what kind of group would you be? And then for them to make that group happen, and so that that group could, support something. And in this specific example, I'd use a chamber as an example. The chamber represents a lot of businesses, and so if we could get the chamber through all their members to sponsor, sponsor teachers' merit pay, sponsor a teacher or sponsor a school. It's very similar to what the business out there that's already
Partnerships.
Yes. And like I said, we have one that needs to be recognized.
Yeah.
Kind
of the question, I guess, would be how long could they sustain it?
Yes.
And that would probably be part of their question too. How long do you want me to do this?
Yes.
So.
Well, as a group, I think that'd be easier.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, using the chamber for example, because they do represent so many small businesses. I think it'd be easier for a group to sustain something instead of one individual large business. And I hesitated at first to recognize, but it's supposed to afford.
Yeah.
They're doing a wonderful job of collecting funds, and it's strictly school funds. They mention every time in their advertisements and stuff. Yes, they're a privately owned business, and yes, they have to make ends meet, but at the same time, they're doing what they can to help the cause. And it's that kind of things that need to be both encouraged and recognized.
Yeah. Okay.
You talked about working with the different agencies, and that you think that would be one of your strong points you would bring to the table, is your ability to bring people together. Can you talk about how you would do that?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm easy to get along with. And I have represented people before. When I was in the service, I was a command master chief, and that position, you are representing the group of people and the morale and welfare of everyone. Not only one specific individual, but the group as a whole. And so, working as a board member, I look forward to working with the other entities. I have volunteered for the city. I've served on the Code Enforcement Board for a number of years. I was chairman of that board for about 4 years, and a board member for about 4 years. And real proud of the performance of that board and the way the board got along. You know, as both a member and a chairman, it was a pleasure to serve there. In our particular situation, using that example, we referred things to other boards because that was their area that they were responsible for, and we didn't interact with them. But as a board member, I would look forward to it, have no qualms at all about filling the position of interacting with other agencies, you know, representing the school board. You know, as not as a personal thing, but as a liaison between, you know, and I think all of our intergovernmental agencies need to work with each other. You know, those of us who have been here a long time, we know that the city and the county haven't had the best relationships all the times. You know, the beach and the counties, you know, there's always these little political things or personality things that get involved in these situations, and they shouldn't. If you're there, you're in a position, you're to represent everybody and do it to the best of your ability, and everything else is left outside the door. You know, it's not to be brought inside of this. Your whole purpose is to improve things. You know, and the politics and everything else need to be left outside. You know, I don't believe in that at all.
Let me ask you, the school district is involved in the Race to the Top, the federal funded program for states to get involved to improve their schools. One of the issues that has come up across lines, state candidates and federal candidates, is, you know, maybe we should, from the federal candidates, maybe we should eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. That would eliminate a lot of money and let the states get back to determining how education should flow without federal interference. And the second part of that is, that's money coming from us as taxpayers to Washington. So would you favor, how do you feel about that? And what kind of process would you favor to get the federal dollars that we send to Washington designated for education back to us? In what form?
That is a very interesting question. And as a personal aspect, yes, I would agree with eliminating several departments that we have. You know, my personal belief is our government has grown too large. You know, and to use examples, the Department of Education, but also let's use a couple others, and let's say farm subsidies or something like this, or the money that we give to utility companies. Years ago, our federal government gave subsidies to utility companies to run electric lines out to the farms and to run telephone lines out to the farms. But we're still giving that money. We still have agencies to oversee those funds. We don't need to do that anymore. You know, our present day and age, everybody has access. You know, even if it wasn't a hard line, we have the satellite systems and stuff, you know, to fill all those areas. And so those type of subsidies, I strongly believe that we need to eliminate. Okay, and so here we go with the Department of Education. Same thing. It's a large bureau. It's an amazing amount of funds that we could free up to our schools. I strongly support returning the control and the funding back to the state level and back to the local levels, you know, as much as possible. Now, along with that, yes, there's still accountability, both for the funds and for the performance. And so we need to keep those things in line at the same time. But the funding itself, you know, the people that need it to control it, you know, in this case, our school system knows where we need to spend our funds. You know, and we might need to spend our funds just a little bit differently from the county next door. You know, the county next door could be a retirement community and not having to need any funds to build schools. Where we're still a growing community and we have to balance both because we have that. We should be able to decide that on local levels about the funds that come to us. And we've already talked a little bit about this with the utility funds, the PAYCO funds, the lottery funds. You know, how they're restricted by, they can only go to charters. And this is just another example of funding that we're sending up to Washington, and then they're doling it back to us with all these mandates or strings attached. You know, let's get rid of all of it. You know, it's not necessary anymore. You know, at one time, yes, it was necessary, and it was the way to accomplish things that we needed to better improve our community. You know, and going back to, you know, the subsidies for electric companies to supply electricity to farms. Yes, we needed it at one day, you know, and yes, we needed, you know, subsidies to build the roads and subsidies to the telephone lines, you know, everything that makes things better for us. But we basically have those services, so let's reduce the size of the government where we can. And this is a direct thing. It's not reduce it because we can reduce it as much as it reduces it because it's filled its function. You know, it has done a great job. Now let's return those funds to the people that contribute and need them. And by eliminating huge bureaucracies, you know, that's a lot of funding that would be available. Now, we both know, just like in our local level, when we had the lottery funds come available, our state legislature says, okay, we have lottery funds, we can spend this amount of money that we were spending on something else. You know, everybody that voted for, well, the majority of people that voted for lottery funds, you know, for the lottery to be going to education, they thought, this is all additional money. And it did not turn out to be additional money. Well, here we have something that could happen in Washington, D.C. the same way. You know, here we have additional money. You know, at the same time we eliminate these agencies that have done their job, we need to make sure those funds aren't up to grabs by anybody else. You know, and here's a perfect example. You know, the Department of Education, it has performed its job. Now, the funds that went to the Department of Education need to go to education, back to the state levels, back to the local levels, not be diverted for something else. You know, and that's for our representatives that we send, to make sure those funds come straight back to us. You know, our local representatives need to work closely with our state and our U.S. representatives to make sure that's what happens. You know, that doesn't get diverted.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
I know that other people have talked about the FCAT test and possibly doing away with it, and you know, bringing in another test. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, the FCAT, you know, we've had state standards, you know, Florida state standards, testing standards for quite some time, and the state standards that we had were replaced by the FCAT, and they weren't really replaced. It was a refinement. You know, this is better than what we have, so now let's implement this. And now we're excuse me, and now we're having the Common Core standards, and they're not replacing the FCAT. They're an improvement of the FCAT. And by improvement, this is one place where when we had when we had this fair standards, you know, they were refined. You know, the teachers, the educational system looked at it and said, okay, we're testing this, but how can we make it better? You know, where do we need to make it better? And so then we came out with FCAT. Now, the Common Core standards is we have FCAT, and, you know, our school system has reached a good level. You know, now we're ready to refine it. You know, and so I don't really want to use the word replace. It's refinement up. So how can we improve upon the FCAT system? And now we have Common Core values. And the Common Core standards are going into more in-depth on the subjects. So for example, FCAT tests your fundamental understanding of a subject. Common Core is going to test your ability to apply that, you know, more in-depth in understanding of what you have learned. Okay, so it's a refinement of the system, and it's improvement of the system, and that's what we should always strive for. You know, in another 10, 20 years, I wouldn't be surprised that we come out with another standard, you know, because any system that you use or any method that you use, whether it's the teachers or whether it's a person in their daily life or a mechanic or whatever, you know, how can you do things better? And In this system, we just happen to put names on them and imply them because now they have the names and stuff. In this system, we're better able to grade them, you know. But at the same time, it gives a performance level for everybody. Our students, our teaching systems, you know, the methods that we use, they're graded by this also. You know, so did this method work? You know, has it made the improvements that we wanted it to? You know, so if we don't have a grading or evaluation system, which is a better way to say it, evaluation system, you know, how can we make improvements? And that's basically all this does. The other side of that, I personally believe we all perform better when we have something to strive to. You know, if we can't make a goal ourselves, you know, then if there's standard goals there that we have to meet, you know, that's the minimum level that we should strive to. You know, and that's the way I look at that and strongly support it.
Okay. Well, we are at our end. But now you have the last word. Anything we didn't ask you that you want to comment on? Anything you want to remind the voters? And you're on.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank the Record for holding these interviews and making them available to the public. And of course, I want to thank anybody in the public that takes the time to preview these interviews. Our electoral system is an amazing, you know, we live in a democratic republic, and the more people that get involved, the better the system will be. And I'm proud to be a candidate. I look forward to serving on the board. I look forward to representing our students, our parents, our teachers. I feel that what I can bring to the board is I am retired United States Navy, and I have a small business that I'm going to turn over to my partnership, so I'm going to be retired from that business. And I'll be able to devote full-time effort to membership or participation on the school board. And I think right now in these times, you know, that it is going to take more of an effort of everybody involved, and especially the leaders. In this case, the leaders would be the board members. You know, it's going to take an increased effort on their part, an increased amount of time on their part to make things the best that they can be. In other words, to go to Tallahassee and work closely with not just our representative, but all the representatives there, you know, to try to appear before the committees and stress the importance of what we have in St. Johns County and what we need. You know, the unfunded schools is a perfect example. You know, we still have a growing system. You know, the only way that the funds are becoming available if we fight for them. You know, that we represent our people properly, and that's what I mean by fight. If we devote the amount of time and the amount of effort that's going to be there, and the more of us that can go, in this case, to Tallahassee and present up front and plead our case, you know, explain to them what we need, you know, and I so often with our administrators, not our administrators, but legislation, they'll create a law and it has a good intent, but somebody always finds a loophole. In this case, it's not somebody finding a loophole, but they made a law and it had a good intent, but we need more than that, you know. And here's a place where we need to plead our case, bring these funds back locally. Let us do with them as each county needs to. Yeah. Let us have more control of these funds. The PECO funds, the lottery funds, the charter school funds, yes, those are all funding methods, but let us decide exactly where we need to put those individual efforts. You know, concentrate on those particular areas.
Okay. Okay.
And I thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I just hope I did this right.